I'm not gonna lie, I didn't even know I had this many Ringo records. So hello and yes, welcome back to another video, guys. Do I need to bring the chair down? I need to bring the chair down. There you go, I'm more in frame now. So hello and yes, welcome back to another album review. Ringo Starr! Woo! I don't know if people are going to be excited about this or a little bit like, really, you're talking about Ringo. Yeah, why am I doing Ringo? Well, I've done like at least 3 albums from the other Beatles in their solo careers. And I haven't done a Ringo review since I rebooted my album reviews. Nearly 2 years ago now. So I thought, it's time. Ringo's got a new album coming out this month, which I'm actually really excited for. So I thought, yeah, let's do it. Let's do a Ringo review. Let's go for it. So anyway, in this review, we're going to do the usual. Oh, it's Time Takes Time, by the way. I haven't actually said what Ringo album. I'm doing Time Takes Time. So yeah, in this review, I'm going to give you a bit of information about the album. We're going to go over each track individually. We're going to mark each track individually out of 10. I'm going to show you my copy of the vinyl record. And we're going to mark the artwork for this album out of 10. Then when all that's said and done, we're going to add up all the scores given, divide it by the total number of scores given, and it will give us an overall marking for this album out of 10. But we won't be done there, because then we've got to head over to the album ranking board, which I've got right here. Fantastic. We're going to put it on there and see where it ranks compared to other albums I've reviewed here on this channel. But before we get started, there's a couple quick things I need to shout out. I need to shout out to my 2 brilliant friends, Lewis and Ryan, who joined me for my last video. For those of you who haven't checked out my last video, please go do it, because it was so much fun. It was one of the most fun videos I've ever done, having 2 of my, very closest friends here with me. It was brilliant. So it was really fun. I hope to do videos with them again. Get some more guests in on the channel. Be brilliant. I enjoyed it so much. Also, for those of you who don't follow me on Twitter, there's a link in the description to my Twitter account. I'm not one of those guys who's going to sit here and go, please follow me, please. It's up to you. But I've had a lot of fun with people who have headed over there and followed me. I do a lot of music talk on there, and you guys can see what films I'm watching and just what I'm getting up to and whatnot, and some of you might enjoy it. So anyway, there's a link to my Twitter in the description as well. Let's get started on the actual album review now. So Time Takes Time, I have this thing where with John, I've done all the albums he's done with Yoko, kind of just to get the Yoko stuff out of the way with, so now I can do proper John solo albums. And Paul and George, I've just been going in chronological order. Other than George, I accidentally done 33 1/3 out of place. But anyway, Ringo, I thought, well, what order do I want to go in? I thought, I just want to review whatever one I want to talk about. So I thought, let's not start at the beginning or let's not start at the end with Ringo. Let's just dive in with whatever album I'm in the mood to talk about. And I'm in the mood to talk about this one, Time Takes Time. One of the very popular Ringo albums amongst fans. And unfortunately an album which deserves way more attention than it gets. And an album which got very overlooked. So anyway, this album came out on the 29th of June 1992. The album failed to chart, which is embarrassing. Not for this album, embarrassing to people who were buying music at the time, because they overlooked such a really good record, really. I mean, I think people just hear the name Ringo and they just have low expectations. They're kind of like, oh. Only the true Beatles fans really stick with Ringo. And it's a real shame, because albums like this are just so good, really. And it's a shame. But anyway, been 4 years since the last album from Ringo. This one. This is Old Wave. Yeah. I always want to say Long Wave, but I'm so... I'm a big fan of Jeff Lynne's Long Wave. That's why I want to say that all the time. Yeah, so it's 4 years since the last album. Ringo, when he went in to record this record, he really wanted it to have a nice, new, fresh feel to it. So he tested out all these producers. He got all these producers in. They all gave it their best shot. And initially, Ringo was just going to pick one producer for this album. But he liked all 4 so much, in the end he said, look, well, we're just going to use all of them. So, 4 fantastic producers on this album, one of which is Jeff Lynne from the Electric Light Orchestra. I am a humongous ELO fan. So to hear Jeff Lynne on this album is fantastic. And, Jeff Lynne's always been involved with the Beatles. He had just done, of course, Travelling Wilburys with Mr. George Harrison. And then after this album, he would then go on to do the Beatles anthology and work with Paul McCartney on Flaming Pie. And I think even Ringo reflects very well on this album, because Ringo had come out and said he'd never been this happy with a record since his self-titled Ringo album, which you can just see up here. Just see it up there. So yeah, that's fantastic. And the Rolling Stones magazine agreed with him. One of the quotes in their review for this album at the time was his best work since the self-titled Ringo album. I think I'd agree with that. I am a big fan of Goodnight Vienna, and I really like the album that came before this, Old Wave. So, I mean, but I do think I'd put it above them. I do think this is a better album. The album isn't actually that long, and it's not actually full with loads of tracks. There's only 10 tracks. But to be honest, when you've got a solid album, 10 tracks can just seem fantastic still. So anyway, let's get started. So it opens up with what is my favourite song on the album, and possibly my favourite Ringo song. I'd probably say it's my second favourite. I'm a massive softie for massive sucker for Photograph. That's still my favourite Ringo song. But I probably would say this is my second favourite Ringo song ever. Not including Beatles stuff. It was a solo career as a solo artist. Weight of the World, and this was released as a single. I didn't write it down on my notes, but I believe it hit 74 in the charts. 70 something. Which is a shame, because if that song had been done by anyone who was popular at the time, R.E.M., Oasis, if they'd done Weight of the World, it would have been a much bigger hit. If Paul McCartney had done it, it probably would have cracked the top 10. But unfortunately, because it's Ringo, people just don't pay attention. And it's a shame, because it is a cracker. It is a fantastic song. It has amazing guitar intro on it, which really does remind you of the 90s feel. Ringo captured the 90s feel fantastically. It really does sound like something R.E.M. would put out in the style of the playing. And some of Ringo's best vocals. Ringo's vocals I find are... I don't like to bash Ringo's vocals, because I do think he's an okay singer, but I really don't think he's much more than that. However, on this track, he shines really well with his vocals. His vocals are really good. You can tell that he's putting a lot of effort in. It sounds fantastic. I think he sounds great. The chorus is just so catchy. I just catch myself humming this song a lot. Like this song, Photograph, and the 2012 Wings song. I always hum along to them songs. I think they're great. The song is broken up well. It has a very, very fun flow to it. It's like you don't get bored of the chorus and start thinking, oh, start another verse. We don't get bored of the verse and think, come on, chorus, let's have it. It's so well positioned. The song is broken up so well. It has a great feel to it. And it's a very, even though he's captured the 90s feel great, the style of playing and just everything about the way this song has been recorded really reminds me of how the Beatles used to record with the backing singers and whatnot. And it also reminds me of some of Ringo's 70s work, from like the self-titled album to Ringo the Fourth, the good stuff from the 70s from Ringo. It's got a really cool feel to it. I'm going to give this song a 9 out of 10. It's so worth checking out if you haven't heard it. It is easily the highlight. I'm already going to spoil it, but this is my favourite track on the album, obviously. This is the highlight for the album. If you want to find something which might tempt you to get into this album if you haven't already heard it, this is the track to go to. It's great. So then we move on to a track called Don't Know a Thing About Love. And again, this is another good song. It's another good song. A similar feel to it. It does kind of move on a bit. It has a different flow to the song after what we've just had on Weight of the World. But when Ringo starts singing, it's like the song just dips down and goes really slow, which is nice. It's good. It has a bit of a different feel, and I like it when songs do that. They start off and then it'll change a bit. Just shows more character, I think, in a song. So I like that. The chorus works so well. I love the chorus. It's fantastic. Ringo's vocals on the chorus are great. And the backing vocals are awesome. The backing vocals are just great on this song. Love them. It's a really nice song. I'm going to give this track a 7 out of 10. Good track. And then we get another one that starts with Don't. We get Don't Go Where the Road Don't Go. And this is a bit more of a rocking track. And that's because Mr. Jeff Lynne is behind it. Even though Jeff Lynne was very commercial at the time, I feel. You know, his last ELO album, Balance Power, was very 80s and very droning and bleh. And then in the Wilburys were very commercial as well. But then Jeff Lynne kind of come out a bit with his first solo album, Armchair Theatre, and he got that old gritty ELO feel back, the classic ELO feel back, where he would get a bit more rocking with the guitar. And you can see that he's brought it onto this track, which sounds fantastic. Look at me, I'm ELO nerding out on you guys, I apologise. This is a Ringo review. And Ringo works really well with it. The drum beat's good. The only problem that I have with this song, and you know, I can't blame Jeff for it. It's Ringo's vocals work really well on the chorus, but for the verses, his vocals are not very good, unfortunately. They're a bit droning and a bit something like you'd expect off this album here, where, you know, it's just like he's there. It's like, I've been told to record a record, so I'm doing it. You know, that's kind of the impression I get of the vocals on the verses. However, it doesn't deflect from the song too much because the song still picks itself up in other areas and it sounds really, really good. It has some of the best guitar work on as well, I'll say that. I'm going to give this song a 7 out of 10 as well. It would be higher if it wasn't for the vocal performance. However, I will say Ringo saves it on the chorus. He does a good job. And then we get a track called Golden Blunders. And I remember the first time I ever got this record. Not this one. When I got my Russian copy. Right there. I started to think, I don't know why, but I'm not going to like this track. It just sounds a bit silly. Anyway, it's actually one of the best tracks on here. Ringo tries a slow acoustic song, which for a drummer and for someone who's known for doing quite rock and roll stuff, because it's what they're good at, you wouldn't think it would work well. You wouldn't think that a slow acoustic song would work very well for Ringo, but it bloody does. It's good. It's very, very good. His voice works really well with it in parts. Once again, it has a very catchy chorus to it. This album is just full of catchy choruses. And I really like this song. It's a good song. I mean, I really can't find much fault in it. I always enjoy it when it's on. So, yeah, I'm going to give this one an 8. An 8 out of 10. Then we get a track called All in the Name of Love. And you know where this song's going. Early signs of what Ringo has become. So this feels like an 80s throwback track, I find. Especially at the start. You know, it doesn't throughout the whole song. And it's really cool, actually. I really like that, you know, that kind of feel that the song has. Because the only other record we got from Ringo in the 80s, other than the live one, was this one, Old Wave. And I wouldn't say Old Wave has an 80s feel to it. So this is really it when it comes to 80s Ringo. I will credit Ringo really well for not falling into the trap of the 80s. And I love the 80s sound. I love the 80s music. But a lot of artists fell into that trap from the 60s and 70s. And they started to put out some not so great tunes, unfortunately. You know, Elton John, Paul McCartney, they fell short of it, in my opinion. I know some people are going to like that music that Elton put out in the 80s and that music that Paul McCartney put out in the 80s. But for me, they fell into the trap where they kind of lost their characters a bit in the music. Ringo never done that. He never did. This is like as close as he gets, I think. But this album rocks. So, so yeah, Old Wave didn't have that sound really. So this is all we get really of that 80s vibe really. This album, and it doesn't. It sounds more like a 90s record, obviously. But this song here has the 80s throwback. So the song itself, you know, it's just okay. It flows well, but it's not too interesting for me. It's a bit cheesy. The chorus is okay. The best part is the guitar work in it. It has a cool solo. I'll give it a 6. It's an okay track. So then we're moving on to side 2, and we get a track called After All These Years. And it's the second Jeff Lynne track. And Ringo sounds a lot better, vocal-wise. A lot better. The guitar is very present throughout the song again. Again, you know, you can tell that this song, you know, is very similar to Don't Go Where the Road Don't Go. Yeah, I like the song. It's, you know, also got a really cool guitar solo in it. So, I'll give this one a 7. Good track. And we got I Don't Believe You. And this feels, you know, it's a good song. It's a good song. I'm not going to be too harsh on this one. It's just, I like this song a lot because it's really different to not only anything on this album, it's different to anything Ringo's ever done in his career or ever will do in his career, I think. Unless his new album just shocks us with something. But it's got a very weird feel to it. It's like you don't expect Ringo Starr to be doing this, but it sounds great. I like it. It's good. The only problem is the song kind of just drones it on you, and it's like they know they've got like a unique sound for this record, and they just keep going back. And eventually, by the end of the song, you are pleased it's over. I'm not going to lie, or at least I am. Yeah, you know, it's the backing vocals are brilliant. The backing vocals are better than the lead vocals, if I'm being honest. Yeah, it's okay, but I did actually have on my notes here 7 out of 10 for this song, but by the end of it, I was kind of pleased it was over, so I did take the song down a mark. I'm going to give it 6 out of 10. Then we get Runaways, and opens with some very strange sounds, which gives the song a bit more character, I guess. It kind of reflects on the lyrics of the song. But yeah, you know, Ringo sings this one in a bit of a different style, which is good. And I like it, but it's a bit of a throwaway track, really. I mean, on the album, I think it's a bit of a forgettable one, really. And I mean, honestly, on another Ringo album, it would stand out, I think. It's just because this album has got some really good songs. Like, the whole A-side, really, is just really fun. So it's like, you do kind of forget about this one. Because it's, you know, it hasn't got, like, the character, like, I Don't Believe You had, the previous track. So I'm going to give this track 6 as well. Then we get to the only song on the album, which I'm just like, whatever, I don't care. So I'm sorry if anyone out there really likes In a Heartbeat, because I'm not a fan of this track, personally. This song it's quite slow, and it doesn't move the album along either. I really feel, you know, the A-side flows so well. And then we get to the B-side, and I Don't Believe You, you know, that was quite good. You know, that was alright. I can see why people would really enjoy that one. It's upbeat, it's fun. And we get Runaways, which is a bit more, you know, of a chilled out kind of bliffy song where you know, I think it's a bit forgettable. So you need a track to pick the album up here, and this song really doesn't do it. It's very forgettable. I'm just, you know, my opinion, guys, but I would use the word boring to describe this song. But I'm not going to be too harsh on it because there's nothing that I dislike. There's just nothing I like either. So I'm going to go middle of the road. I'm going to give this track 5 out of 10. And then we get the closing track, What Goes Around. And the last track finally picks up. It saves this album. It goes out on a good note. Thankfully, you know, it has quite a bit going on in it. Some very good vocals from Ringo. Some of his best vocals on the whole album, in fact, are on this track, I think. And yeah, it has a nice beast to it. Beast? Has a nice beast to it. There's a beast on this track, apparently. Has a nice beat to it, and yeah, it's a fun track. I like it. I'll give that a 7 out of 10 as well. So anyway, overall, you know, I'll say the A-side is great. I'm not a big fan on the closing track of the A-side, but it's still good. The B-side is not as strong, but there's only one track that I have real problems with on the B-side. Overall, this is a very underrated album. It's an album which needs a lot more time. It's a very, very good album. So now let's do the artwork. The cover is awesome. I love this cover. If I was to do a video talking about my favourite solo Beatle record album covers, this could potentially be the number 1. It's so good. I love it. You've got little bits hinting at songs on here. So many things going on. You've got The Weight of the World down there. Fantastic. I love it. It's one of the coolest covers ever. The cover itself will get 10. But I'm not, you know, huge on the back cover because we've got peace and love, peace and love. Hi, I'm Ringo, peace and love. I'm bringing out a new album, peace and love. It drones a bit. It drones a bit, Ringo. It does. And then the gatefold. Peace and love. So this is the reissue, of course, and it is on green vinyl. I know they're bringing out another one of these reissues. I think it's Bad Boy on blue vinyl. I'm not a fan of Bad Boy, so I'm not buying it. But it is very, very nice, though. Nice green vinyl. Love it. So yeah, what am I going to give the artwork? I'd love to give it a 10 because of the cover, but there are other things on the artwork that annoy me, so I'm not going to give it a 10. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. So yeah, I've added up all the 10 scores and then chucked in, of course, the album artwork scores, so 11. So I've added them all up and divided them by 11. And Ringo Starr's Time Takes Time gets a solid 6.9. Stop laughing. Yeah, I stick with that. It's a good score for this album. That's about where I would put it, I think. Low battery warning, thank you. So anyway, here it is. The album ranking board. I still ain't found a home for it, guys, so I'm just going to unroll it and show you. Fleetwood Mac Mirage is also on here. That was the last album I reviewed, and I didn't have the album ranking board with me when I reviewed it. And that got 7.7. So you can also see that on here. So I'll quickly do Mirage. You can see it there, tied with One Step Beyond. And if we go out, we can see Time Takes Time right there on a 6.9. It's tied with Paul McCartney's Red Rose Speedway on a 6.9. And Eric Clapton's Another Ticket. Ringo has done quite well though. It's managed to beat out 2 George Harrison albums. It's managed to beat out Lindsey Buckingham, Christine McVie's new album. A Jam album by just a solid 0.1. 1, 2, 3 Phil Collins albums. You know, I'd stick with that. I do generally believe in this ranking board. I'm pretty confident with it. Got a John album down there, one of the ones with Yoko. There'll be another one in a minute. Steve Winwood, ELO's debut, Paul McCartney, Wildlife, The Who, Face Dances, if anyone remembers that album. And then them 2 turds at the bottom. So, I'm only joking, guys. Don't take any of this seriously. You know me, I'm only having fun. So yeah, it's done very well. So, you know, honestly, you know, I know that people talk about Ringo a lot. And, you know, he kind of gets a bit of a, you know, kind of people just kind of throw him away a bit, like, oh, I'm saying Ringo. Well, yeah, Ringo has some brilliant stuff. I think he is an underrated artist. I really do believe it. I mean, I know people always throw this at me. If he wasn't a Beatle, would anyone care? The answer is, you know, if he didn't get his shot at fame, he probably wouldn't have. But it doesn't matter. He's here, he's trying, he's making these records. And they are, some of his records are generally really good. And this is one of the really good ones. It's been reissued because I think Ringo and this record label, I forget who did this. I'm not sure from the logo. Probably says on the back. Well, I could look on the back. Friday Music, and they're quite good. I've got a few of their records. You know, they probably knew this album, people wanted to get it on vinyl because it is a popular Ringo album. Pick it up, guys. It's great. It's a really good record. Ringo deserves so much more than he gets. He's a fantastic artist, solo artist. Yeah. So anyway, Ringo Starr's Time Takes Time gets 6.9. It's a great album. It's a very good album. One of Ringo's best. So that is it for this review, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Please hit that subscribe button, like the video, and leave a message. And I'll see you guys next time for another video.